Welcome back to Anything You Want. If you value honest, unfiltered celebrity coverage, make sure to subscribe, smash the like button, and consider clicking join to support our work. Today we bring you an intimate and revealing account from the lives of two of Turkey's most scrutinized stars, Kerem Bürsin and Hande Erçel. This is a story of grief, quiet devotion, and the tensions that arise when private sorrow collides with public perception. Stay with us, and don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below. Your voice matters here. The day began with the measured cadence typical of a family in mourning, muted voices, the somber exchange of condolences, the ritual gestures that mark the end of a life. Among the relatives who gathered was Kerem Bürsin, the actor whose public persona rarely allows for such vulnerability. Witnesses at the ceremony described a man doing his best to perform the social rites of grief, accepting embraces, thanking visitors, and attempting to keep composure while his emotions plainly tugged at him. There were moments when he had to excuse himself, when the traces of sorrow became visible behind a deliberate mask. Yet as the last visitors departed and the formalities wound down, a different image emerged. Instead of retreating to the familiar shelter of his family home, Kerem chose a path that disclosed where his heart currently seeks solace. He went directly to the apartment of his partner, Hande Erçel. That decision, apparently simple, but loaded with consequence, has become the fulcrum of a story that blends tenderness and controversy, sympathy and speculation. Before we continue, a quick reminder from Anything You Want. If you enjoy in-depth stories like this one, hit subscribe, leave a like, and press join to help us keep delivering exclusive coverage. Now back to the story. What transpired in Hande's home after the funeral, according to people close to the couple, was an exercise in the quiet craft of consolation. Rather than making a theatrical display for cameras or posting scripted statements, Hande reportedly prepared a warm, unpretentious meal, dimmed the lights, and allowed Kerem to move through his grief at his own pace. The house, described by insiders as calm, with soft background music and comforting touches, became a private haven where breakdowns could be brief and words unnecessary. This scenario has two central threads worth untangling: the nature of Hande's support and the reaction it provoked among family members and the wider public. On one hand, Hande's behavior reads as an archetype of discretion. She avoided public pronouncements, prioritized Kerem's emotional needs, and intentionally refrained from social media displays that might have provoked further commentary. To many admirers, this was proof of a mature, selfless partnership, actions, not declarations. Social platforms reacted with predictable intensity. Thousands of messages poured in across Instagram and Twitter, a mixture of consolation and debate. Fans rallied, leaving sympathetic notes to Kerem and praising Hande for her attentiveness. Others criticized her absence from the cemetery and questioned whether a partner should be more visibly present during family rituals. One commonly shared sentiment read, in effect, true devotion shows itself in the shadows, not the spotlight. Another echoed the opposing view: visibility at a grief gathering matters, symbolic acts hold weight. We want to hear from you. Do you think Hande acted wisely by remaining private and providing comfort behind closed doors, or should she have attended the funeral to stand visibly by Kerem's side? Tell us below, and don't forget to subscribe to Anything You Want so you don't miss the follow-up. Those close to the actors describe Hande's presence as painstakingly attuned to Kerem's needs. She reportedly listened more than she spoke, offered physical reassurance without demanding conversation, and crafted an environment that allowed him to collapse inward without fearing judgment. She gave him permission to be weak, a source said, adding that the couple's recent time in Milan had deepened their understanding of one another, an intimacy that, in moments like this, becomes a lifeline. Yet the very tenderness that impressed many also opens the door to complications. Families are systems that operate on expectations and unspoken contracts. Karam's apparent prioritization of his partner's home over an immediate return to the family residence has been portrayed by some observers as a rupture of traditional forms. Whether intentionally provocative or not, the act raises the perennial question: when grief and modern partnership values collide, which duty takes precedence? From a broader cultural vantage, the episode illuminates how celebrity relationships are scrutinized differently than private ones. A decision that might pass unnoticed in a non-public life is blown up, reinterpreted, and subjected to collective moralizing when it involves well-known figures. For Karam and Hand, every private choice becomes an element in a public narrative, one that they must navigate while also processing personal pain. There is also a strategic dimension to Hand's silence. Avoiding public explanations or defensive statements can be read as an attempt to keep the focus on Karam's mourning rather than on the couple's private arrangements. In the heat of tabloid speculation, any public comment risks inflaming the situation, turning a family matter into a protracted media spectacle. Her decision to remain private aligns with a growing trend among some celebrities: refuse the bait and let the storm pass without feeding it more oxygen. Supporters point to the aftermath as evidence that the couple's unity has been strengthened, not weakened. Reporters who have followed the two say that Karam spent the subsequent night at Hand's home and that the following day was devoted to unremarkable, tender routines, a slow return to normalcy that, to those inside the circle, signaled resilience. Fans reacted warmly. Thousands shared messages calling the episode proof that authentic love is proven in sorrow. Professional observers, agents, PR consultants, and a few cultural commentators have begun framing the episode as instructive for other public figures. The recommended approach, they say, is to manage optics without sacrificing authenticity, choose privacy when the stakes are personal, offer visible solidarity where it matters culturally, and coordinate with families to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. Had Hand and Karam preemptively issued a brief, respectful note explaining their intentions, perhaps some of the speculation could have been tempered. Then again, silence carries its own potency. At the heart of this story is a human truth that transcends tabloids and trending hashtags. Grief reveals the architecture of relationships. When the scaffolding of everyday life collapses under loss, who becomes the place of shelter? For Karam Bursin, that shelter, at least on this occasion, was Hand Ersel's living room, quiet, warm, and patient. For Hand, the moment offered a test of devotion and empathy. She chose to provide sanctuary rather than demand public acclaim. As this delicate chapter unfolds, Anything You Want will keep monitoring developments. Will any family tensions deepen into a longer rift? Will Karam or Hand make a public statement to clarify their choices? Or will the matter dissipate as the couple and their families find private equilibrium? We'll follow each turn closely, but before we go, we want to ask you one more question. What should public figures do when private pain conflicts with public expectations? Is privacy paramount, or is symbolic presence a necessity? Thank you for reading our detailed coverage. If you found this piece insightful, please subscribe to Anything You Want, tap like, and consider clicking join to support independent coverage of Turkey's entertainment world. Leave a comment now. Do you stand with Karam's choice to seek solace in Hand's home, or do you think he should have prioritized family rituals? Your comments shape our next report, and we read every single one. Until next time, stay with Anything You Want for responsible, immersive storytelling from the intersection of celebrity and real life.